Welcome to this podcast at the Department of Labor, and we're with the Commissioner of Labor, Leslie Osborn, and you come to the agency with some really interesting background in that you worked for a living, and then for 22 years you owned and managed a small business, and then elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives, the Oklahoma legislature, and in that role then you learned the relationship between the legislature and the agencies the legislature oversees and the rulemaking process and that sort of thing. And now you have been for several years the Commissioner of Labor and in charge of the Department of Labor. That has bound to have given you some insight into the agency, the Department of Labor, how it works, how it functions, and you probably came into the Department of Labor knowing that there are many things that they do that are good, that work real well for both employees and employers, and possibly some things that might need a little tweaking or changing to make them as efficient and productive as the things that are working perfectly.
Right, very good. And that's it. So having my own business, of course, I was a limited liability corporation. I sold truck parts for 22 years, an ag sales business after I graduated from Oklahoma State. But some of the things that they do here correlated. So for instance, paying wages. I had to learn how to do FICA and withholding and all those kind of things, which is one of our great services, that if somebody starts a new business or would like some type of presentation to a group of HR managers or finance people, we'll go out and do that. We make sure that people are paid their wages properly, but that's part of being a good agency and, doing that outreach. There were other things that also would have correlated. And then in my years in the legislature, I had run bills for two former commissioners, for Mark Costello and for Melissa Houston. So I kind of got to know what the agency did. And I was getting close to the end of my years of terming out. I had run a bill that started a new division here for the compressed natural gas industry. So that really kind of helped me learn what the footprint was. And I had 2 years left and found out that Melissa Houston was not going to run for re-election, and decided to jump out early and try this. And it's been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But like you said, there were a lot of things that I knew that they did. But I've also, found out a lot of other things I didn't know about. And it's a very diverse agency, but primarily about safety of citizens and the workforce, and is the main and overarching goal. And I don't think that you can have a more honorable or great reason to come to work every day better than something like that.
That takes us to a question I think a lot of people have, and that is, what is the role and the mission of the Department of Labor?
So we are supposed to be about the welfare of the laborer, or the citizens across the state that are in any kind of job. So we have some fantastic programs that will go out for free to any small business in the state that wants to make sure that they're keeping their employees safe. Great mission. And OSHA is the Federal Department of Labor. They can drop in any business in the United States at any time, spot check, shut a business down, huge fines. We do something proactive on the front end. So if a small business, 500 people and below, would like to have us come out, we will draw them a safety plan. If they agree, we will come out and train their employees. We'll make sure they're doing everything right. They'll receive a certification. That means they'll have lower workers' comp rates. They'll have lower liability insurance. But the main thing, their employees are coming to a safe place, and they're going to go home to their families that night. And it's just a great mission.
You came into this agency, you've been in the business world. Everybody in the business world has goals for their business, for their company. What are some of your goals for this agency, for the Department of Labor?
So we have several regulatory functions besides what I mentioned. We also do safety of citizens. We make sure wages are paid, enforce child labor laws, those kind of things. One thing that we have not done a lot with is we do identify critical workforce shortages. We do a lot of reporting to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that being said, we don't normally do anything about it. So one of the things that we had noted is there's a huge shortage in Oklahoma in the trades. The average age of a plumber is 58. If the average age of your occupation is not in the early to mid 40s, you're in trouble. You have a looming problem that you're not replacing enough of the people retiring. So it's very difficult to find people in those trades. And what we did with a little study was found out that about 25 years ago, there was a federal push that all kids needed to go to college. And when we did that, schools slowly started getting rid of shop class. And because they didn't have time for it with all the prep you would need for college, but then a lot of those kids didn't go to college. What we find is that was a direct correlation in line to when we started seeing shortages, because kids that weren't introduced to it didn't find their niche and didn't go into that. So we're working with a couple of schools to see about starting pilot projects and partnering with them for shop class and for feeding those kids directly into career tech or into apprenticeships where they can have fabulous careers that will be in great demand, they'll be lucrative and no college debt. So instead of just reporting, we're trying to get in there and actually be part of the solution.
That's wonderful. Tell us about the right the employees have to work in an environment that is safe, fair, healthy, and is equal.
You know, it's one of those things that, and this would be, to be totally honest, is why unions started literally decades ago in Europe before they came to the United States, was that there were a lot of things that weren't fair for workers. And to be honest, they didn't really have a voice. Now, whether you're union or non-union, I think it's pretty recognized in a country like the United States that people do deserve a safe workplace. But we need to make sure, because there's still bad actors and there's people that do things unintentionally. A lot of times what we'll see when we go out is somebody that started a business in their barn, building truck beds. All of a sudden they're up to 20 guys and they're crowded in there. They may not have proper ventilation. They may not have good lighting, exit signs, things that you just don't, you take for granted. But if we can come in and put a fresh set of eyes on them at no cost and help them make sure they're doing things better, it's better for everybody. And I do believe most people believe that people deserve to go home to their families at night after working a day, to provide.
Commissioner Osborn, what does it mean to be the lead voice in advocating for all of Oklahoma's employees? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's humbling. I think that it's something you need to take seriously. And so I try to go and educate on a lot of what we do, because before I came in, I would have had no idea what the Department of Labor does, and I'm sure that most people wouldn't. So I try to hit a Rotary group, a chamber group, somewhere in the state at least once a week. And so I travel all over. I think I've been to every county. But when you go out and talk about these things, or for instance, if you're hiring kids that are under 18, well, it's a different set of rules. So we have, good instruction on what it is. Do you do more breaks? You make sure with school times for child labor laws. If your wages aren't being paid, we have a resource that people can actually come to at no cost and make sure that they get those back wages as quickly and expediently as possible, which helps them get to the next job. And, it's just informational. And that's why we're doing this new podcast series, because we just want to make sure that people are aware of what we do, because it's some great services at a very low cost to the taxpayer.
And in future podcasts, we're going to talk about some of the very specifics that this agency does and explain those, how they benefit employees and how they benefit employers in Oklahoma as well. And thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on our podcast.
Okay, thank you.